everyone, hope you all are having an amazing time. This is Tista from New York City, and this vlog is all about the Central Park. This is an old vlog from the month of the November 2021. At the time it was autumn and the New York City was decked up completely with full of autumn colors, and that day it was a perfect weather. The weather was nothing to say more, it was just about perfect. The temperature was soothing, not so cold, not so hot. You would love to roam around, it was like that. And in the early morning, we reached, not in the early morning, it was morning 10, but in the weekend, morning 10 is quite early, and we reached at Central Park to grab all the autumn color from there. You see how beautiful the park is. The Central Park is an iconic park. It's a kind of a piece of nature inside the busy urbanization of Manhattan, 843 acres of land full of trees, meadows, lakes, conservatory situated inside the Manhattan's jungle of glass, concrete, and steel. It gives a lungs to this city. 70% of this park's daily visitors live in the city, and needless to say that New Yorkers love Central Park, and the same we do. But there is a part of its story we may not see. There is a untold history behind this park. It's a story that goes back to the 1811 when a master city plan has been adopted to grow NYC's a bustling city. That time Manhattan was looked like this. Most of the people lived in lower Manhattan. During that time, geographically it was very different. Healy was mostly in countryside. Downside or the lower Manhattan was dense and crowded. Between 1821 and 1855, New York City's population nearly quadrupled. As the city expanded northward up Manhattan Island, people were drawn to the few existing open spaces, mainly cemeteries, for passive recreation. It became home for about 1600 people. A few small neighborhood was become home to many poor whites and immigrants. Among them was a predominantly black community that bought up affordable plots to build homes, churches, and school. It became known as Seneca Village, and when Irish and German immigrants moved in, it became a rare example at the time of an integrated neighborhood. With increasing number of diverse populations living in a small space, racial tension increase, competition of job increases, and that tension lead to violence, and lower Manhattan become increasingly dangerous for people. Historians really speculate that people were coming up here to escape the crowded conditions and the racist climate of lower Manhattan, said Mary Walsh, a historian for the Central Park Conservancy. In 1825, people started buying plots. This began with the landowners in the area, John and Elizabeth Whitehead, when they subdivided their land and sold it as 200 plots. Andrew Williams, a 25-year-old African American shoe shiner, bought the first 3 lots for only $125. Epiphany Davis, a store clerk, bought 12 plots for $578, and the Amazon Church purchased another 6 plots. From there, a community was born. From 1825 to 1832, the Whiteheads sold about half of their land parcels to other African Americans. By the early 1830s, there were approximately 10 homes in that village. The village stretches from what is now West 82nd to 89th Street. Over the course of next 3 decades, the population grows nearly 300 people and contained churches, a school, and dozens of homes, many of them owned by free African Americans. In that time, in the first half of the 19th century, if you were an African American and you owned property, you actually got the right to vote. So that was another incentive to owning property, said Warsh. So the community was getting a safe place to live and to vote. Records from the census and several historical blogs on the Seneca Village shows that the populations were from laborers, domestic workers, shoemakers, waiters, etc. However, everything changed on July 21, 1853. In the early 18s, the population of New York City grew very quickly. More and more residents looked for ways to get away from the city's growing noise and chaos. At the time, open green spaces in New York City were mostly cemeteries. People flocked to them to walk, picnic, and otherwise spend some time closer to nature. In Europe, rich people used to go to grand public parks like Hyde Park in London to escape the hustle and bustle from the city. Looking to Europe, wealthy New York City citizens argued that they too should have a grand park. Frederick Law Olmsted and Calvert Vaux developed the winning plan for Central Park's design. Olmsted described it as the first real park made in this country, a democratic development of the highest significance. In 1853, the New York State Legislature chose 750 acres of land in New York City to be the site of the new park. Located north of the developed downtown, the property ran from 59th to 106th Street. New York took control of the land to create what would become the first major landscaped park in the US. They called it the Central Park. But the proposed 750 acres area includes the Seneca Village along with thousands of other plots of lands and home for around 1,600 people. As the development of Central Park grew closer, newspapers and politicians began to describe the villages as shanty towns. They called the residents denizens, squatters, vagabonds, and scoundrels. Residents of Seneca Village fought to keep their homes and community intact, but in 1857, the city used eminent domain to forcibly remove them. Police removed those who resisted. Once the people were gone, the city demolished the village. Historians know very little about what happened to the former residents. In 2001, over 140 years after Seneca Village was destroyed, an historical marker was placed at its former location. Professors Diana DeZikra-Wall from City College of New York, Nan Rothschild from Columbia University, and Cynthia Copeland from New York University directed archaeological excavation at the site. These took place in 2004, 5, and 11. They recovered artifacts documenting the history of Seneca Village. These included beef bones, dishes, button, bottles, smoking pipes, a toothbrush, and the sole from a child's shoe. Central Park was listed on the National Register of Historic Places on October 15, 1966. It was designed a National Historic Landmark on May 23, 1963. This park is beautiful, and like thousands of visitors in every day, I too enjoy this beauty. However, at the same time, knowing this historic truth of urbanization, I would like to remember the missing village beneath each fallen autumn leaves or spring flower, and respect to the team who ticked out this history. Thank you for watching.